It began as something so small, so ordinary, that most people would have overlooked it. A bracelet. Not diamond-encrusted, not a brand-new luxury release that the media would fight over. Just a simple accessory, delicate in design, subtle in detail, that suddenly disappeared from public view, only to reappear in a way that fans and onlookers could no longer ignore. But when it comes to Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan, nothing is ever truly small. Every glance, every whisper, every shadow of a movement is dissected by fans who swear they can read the hidden language between them. And this time, the vanishing of a bracelet became the spark for yet another wave of speculation, conspiracy theories, and heart-stopping what ifs that no one saw coming. It all started during a promotional event where Wang Yibo appeared on stage looking effortlessly cool, as he always does. Cameras zoomed in on his wrists, capturing every detail of his outfit. That's when fans noticed it, a bracelet he had worn quietly in the past, one that had become almost a signature piece without him ever acknowledging it. But what struck everyone that night was not the bracelet itself, but its absence. For weeks, it had been there, slipping into fan photos, caught in backstage candid shots, visible in off-guard airport images. People had already begun whispering about it, pointing out its uncanny similarity to one that Xiao Zhan had been spotted wearing months earlier. The theories had brewed. Are they sharing it? Did they buy it together? Is it just a coincidence? But now, at this event, it was gone. Completely. What made the disappearance even more suspicious was the timing. Just days earlier, Xiao Zhan had appeared in a fan-taken video, his wrist covered by the sleeve of his jacket. But for one brief second, as he reached out to accept a gift from a fan, something glimmered. A flash of silver. The edge of what looked eerily like the same bracelet. That was all it took. The internet exploded. Did Yibo give it to him? One fan tweeted, attaching zoomed-in screenshots with red circles around the glint of silver. Or has it always been his? Another speculated, pulling out old photos from years ago where Xiao Zhan had worn similar accessories. Some fans went further, claiming it wasn't just a bracelet, it was a secret signal, a silent way of speaking without words. The story didn't die down. Instead, it only grew louder. Because just when people thought it was all a coincidence, new images surfaced. Wang Yibo at a rehearsal, his wrist bare. Xiao Zhan at a casual dinner with friends, the bracelet clearly peeking out under his sleeve. The timing was too perfect, too suspiciously aligned. And then came the most mind-blowing moment of all. At a charity gala weeks later, both of them attended separately, carefully avoiding crossing paths in public. But as the cameras caught their every move, fans noticed something electrifying. Yibo wasn't wearing the bracelet again, but Xiao Zhan was. This time, there was no mistaking it. The unique clasp, the subtle engraving that eagle-eyed fans had memorized, it was the same piece. Social media went into chaos. Clips were slowed down, frame by frame, to prove that the bracelet had moved from one to the other. Some argued that it was intentional, that it was their way of communicating under the radar. Others dismissed it as overanalysis, just another fan-created illusion. But deep down, even the skeptics couldn't shake the timing. How could something so small stir up such perfectly aligned coincidences? Behind the scenes, insiders whispered about tense moments. Staff who had worked closely with both stars hinted that the bracelet wasn't just any accessory, it was a gift. Something exchanged quietly, away from flashing cameras, in a moment that no one was supposed to see. They wouldn't say who gave it to whom, but the way they smiled when asked only added fuel to the fire. What truly electrified fans was the idea that the bracelet wasn't disappearing at random, it was traveling. Like a secret pact, passed back and forth depending on the circumstances. When Yibo wore it, Xiao Zhan didn't. When Xiao Zhan had it, Yibo's wrist was bare. It was as though the bracelet lived between them, a symbol of something unspoken, shifting silently like the tide. And then came the twist that no one could have predicted. A grainy backstage clip began circulating online, taken by someone who had been near the dressing rooms after a music award show. The shaky video showed a figure that fans swore was Wang Yibo entering a room. Seconds later, another figure, taller, broader in the shoulders, slipped inside. The door closed. When they emerged again, one detail stood out: the bracelet had changed wrists. The video wasn't clear enough to be definitive, but that didn't matter. It was enough to reignite the firestorm of speculation. Entire online communities dedicated themselves to analyzing the footage, lining up screenshots with laser precision. And the conclusion they reached was one that shook fandoms across the globe. If the bracelet was truly being exchanged in private, then it wasn't just an accessory anymore. It was proof. Theories spiraled. Some said it was their way of reminding each other, "I'm with you, even if we can't be seen together." Others believed it was a private challenge, a playful back and forth only they could understand. A few went even further, suggesting it was a promise, something deeper, something binding. One thing was certain: the disappearing bracelet had transformed from a quiet accessory into the loudest statement either of them had ever made without speaking a single word. But the story didn't stop there. In an almost cinematic twist, Zhan appeared weeks later at an airport, his wrist bare once again. Fans immediately pounced, waiting for Yibo's next public appearance. And when he arrived at a race event days later, there it was, the bracelet, snug on his wrist, gleaming under the sun. The cycle continued, like a silent dance only they knew the rhythm to. Every disappearance sparked questions. Every reappearance made headlines. What had once been dismissed as coincidence was now impossible to ignore. Too many moments, too many alignments, too many whispers behind closed doors. And perhaps that's why this tiny piece of jewelry captured so many hearts. Because it wasn't about luxury, or fame, or spectacle. It was about the smallest of details carrying the heaviest of meanings. About how love, or something dangerously close to it, can hide in the most ordinary of objects. In the end, no one can say for certain what the bracelet truly means. Perhaps it really is just an accessory, shuffled around by chance. Or perhaps it is the quietest, boldest declaration two people could ever make in a world that watches their every move. What we do know is this: the disappearing bracelet has left a trail of goosebumps, theories, and unforgettable moments that fans will never forget. Because sometimes, the loudest stories aren't told in words, they're whispered in silver, glimmering under stage lights, disappearing only to reappear where no one expects it. And in that silence, in that vanishing and reappearing act, lies a truth that might be too powerful to ever be spoken aloud. If there's one thing fans have learned over the years, it's this: with Wang and Xiao, nothing is accidental. Every detail feels deliberate, as if the universe itself conspires to keep them tied together. And the bracelet, the tiny accessory that shouldn't mean anything, keeps pulling them back into the center of speculation. After the charity gala where Xiao was caught wearing what seemed to be the exact same bracelet, the noise didn't fade. It grew louder. Forums lit up. Weibo trended. Entire fan accounts dedicated themselves to decoding the bracelet cycle. And the deeper people dug, the stranger things began to appear. One fan pointed out something almost chilling: whenever the bracelet disappeared from Yibo's wrist, his public mood seemed to shift. He was quieter, more distant, even in light-hearted settings. But when it reappeared, gleaming under stage lights or tucked casually under a cuff, his demeanor brightened. He smiled more. He teased more. As if the bracelet wasn't just an accessory, but a source of strength. And then, like fate toying with everyone, Xiao was spotted in a candid photo leaving a recording studio late at night. The photographer hadn't even meant to capture anything significant. The picture was blurry, his face half hidden under a mask. But there it was. A familiar curve of silver peeking out from under his sleeve. That was all it took to reignite the storm. Fans compared screenshots side by side. Yibo had worn it during his racing event the week before. And now it was back with Xiao. The timing was too precise. Too perfect. It's not coincidence anymore, one viral post declared. They're passing it back and forth like a secret promise. But the most dramatic moment hadn't even arrived yet. Weeks later, during a major televised variety show, Wang appeared on stage in a dazzling, stylized outfit. Cameras caught every angle. His hands gripped the microphone, his movements sharp and confident. But fans noticed immediately his wrist was bare again. No bracelet. Not a single accessory. Theories flew. Had he retired it for good? Had something happened? And then came the shocker. That very same night, Zhan made a surprise guest appearance at a completely different event across the city. He wasn't scheduled to be there. His team had kept it secret. But when he walked onto the stage, elegant and calm as ever, the cameras zoomed in and the bracelet gleamed like a lightning bolt. The audience gasped. Social media imploded. The fact that one had removed it only for the other to wear it on the exact same night was too much for anyone to brush aside. It was like watching a live relay race. The bracelet had been passed. Quietly. Secretly. But deliberately. Even industry insiders couldn't help but whisper. A staff member working backstage at Yibo's show claimed to have seen a small, discreet box handed off before rehearsals. It wasn't jewelry from the stylists, they hinted. It was personal. Another insider at Zhan's event swore he saw him fiddling with the clasp moments before stepping on stage, as though it was freshly given. The bracelet had transformed into something much bigger than jewelry. It was now a character in its own right, a symbol of connection so strong it felt almost alive. But the mystery deepened further when eagle-eyed fans spotted tiny scratches on the clasp, scratches that weren't there before. Some said it proved the bracelet was the exact same one, passed around over and over. Others argued it was their secret way of confirming it belonged to both. Like scars, marking its journey. And just when the frenzy seemed to peak, something happened that left everyone breathless. A fan video from an airport surfaced online. It wasn't about the bracelet at all, at least, not at first. The clip showed Wang walking briskly through the crowd, masked, hood pulled low. Behind him, a few feet away, Zhan appeared, almost unnoticed. They weren't traveling together, at least not officially. Their teams were careful to keep them apart. But here's where it gets surreal. As Yibo reached the security gate, he adjusted his sleeve. For a fleeting second, cameras captured his wrist. Bare. Empty. A few seconds later, Zhan moved past the crowd control ropes. He lifted his carry-on bag and the bracelet flashed under the harsh airport lights. The internet stopped breathing. They were in the same place. On the same day. And once again, the bracelet had shifted. By now, it was impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Fans across the globe began treating it like a coded message. The bracelet lives between them, one viral thread declared. It's their way of saying, we're here. We're still connected. No matter what. And maybe that's why the story refuses to die. Because in a world where silence is louder than words, this tiny accessory has become a megaphone. Every disappearance feels intentional. Every reappearance feels like defiance. But perhaps the most haunting part of all is the question no one can answer. When one of them wears it, does the other feel it? Does Zhan glance down at his wrist and think of Yibo? Does Yibo slip it on before a race and hear Zhan's voice in his head, steadying him? We may never know. The truth is hidden in shadows, protected by silence. But one thing is certain, the disappearing bracelet is no longer just an accessory. It is a story. A puzzle. A heartbeat in silver, flashing into view only to vanish again, like a secret only two people in the world truly understand. And every time it reappears, it doesn't just sparkle. It roars. Don't forget to like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more dramatic and mind-blowing stories about your favorite stars.